All right, so here we are with John from Witchery in Walhalla, and he's keen to share with us the concerns that he has about the Great Forest National Park. So thank you, John, and welcome to this video. So what do you see as being the major concerns about locking up the bush?
Well, a lot of our business comes through their recreational people, so they're bike riders, they're four-wheel drivers, hunters, eco-tourists, bushwalkers, general people that like to use the natural environment. A lot of them are going to be blocked out and unable to access areas, and really they're just going to probably take their business elsewhere and go further east, and we'll miss out on quite a bit of business. It's sort of an important part of what we, or who we serve here. Besides, the general tourists that come to the town, it's a good deal of the people coming through are, people that utilise, hunters, fishers, just bushwalkers in general. So it's Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned about ecotourism. The government likes to throw that word around, and it's saying ecotourism will actually pick up the slack, and that there'll be more of those, and it'll make up the difference, and you won't even notice the difference for all those bike riders and all that sort of stuff. How real do you think that is?
No, it's not very real at all. The ecotourism is really dependent on the actual conditions. Like the weather conditions. We get a regular group of people that go up to Canberra from here or through here on the mountain bikes.
Yeah.
That's usually happens around about November, December.
Yeah.
And then you're usually only getting walkers coming through from October through to, March. So they don't usually come when the weather's, closed in. It's usually sort of stops a lot of them from being able to. It's really a seasonal thing.
I was going to say, so it's really seasonal, and on top of that, your business already requires only weekends.
Yeah.
So then it narrows down when you really can get the most customers through.
That's generally the time that we make the most. We do get people during the week that'll come through. We've got a lot of elderly groups that like to sort of come up and do walks and things like that, and they'll visit a lot of areas up in, around the Thompson area and stuff like that. They do a lot of walking up there, and because there's a number of tracks around in that area. That's
Now, the government talks about the fact that they consulted those that would be affected widely and for a length of time. What was your experience of consultation?
We received a pamphlet a couple of years ago saying that they were proposing to lock off all the state forests around the catchment area and the Yarra Valley and the Thompson Dam area.
Yeah.
And then we heard, I think it was probably about several months ago, I think it was, that they were having a meeting.
Yeah.
And we heard nothing about it. I think they held it in, Druin or something like that, and we couldn't get down there to it. But that was it. That was as far as we got. We didn't. Really, we've just been relying on other people to provide us with information of what is going on. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because they were supposed to have the night after Druin, they're supposed to be in Erica, and they called it off because there were so many people that turned up in Druin, and they didn't have the answers, so you didn't get to go to one locally. So, So what kind of impacts do you see that closing down the bush would actually have across the board in your community, within your business, within the environment as well?
We've got a major deer problem. And really stopping people from going in and hunting and doing that sort of work. Yeah. It's all on the shoulders of amateur hunters really to look after that area, and a lot of them come through, particularly April, May, into June. We get a lot of groups come through and they're really the only ones that are keeping the numbers down. A lot of those areas are inaccessible for aerial hunting and stuff like that. It's unfeasible. There's heaps of them. We've got still big groups of them coming through town. We're cleaning up everyone's garden.
Really, the deer are actually coming through the town. Wow.
One of the residents came out and found 4 or 5 of them running around just down the road. So,
oh wow!
Yeah. So using this as a highway to get through.
Okay. So wild deer is a big issue. And what you're saying is it's actually really hard for them to do aerial shootings.
Yeah.
They need people on the ground inside the bush.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of them are constrained. A lot of the aerial shooters are constrained by, the animal care. They have to basically make sure that the animals have been cleanly killed and all that sort of stuff. Very hard for a helicopter to find a spot. I mean, it's very rugged ground, out in that area. It's really only 4-wheel drivers and motorcycle riders that regularly get in there, and the hunters, that get in there. So once that's all closed off, those tracks are just going to go away. It doesn't take long for the bush to reclaim a lot of those areas, and they'll be inaccessible. I don't know whether they've got a contingency for the CFA to be in there constantly cleaning up trackways and so forth. So in case of fires and that, certainly it's the recreational people that keep a lot of those areas clear. Clearing down trees and without that in there, it'll turn to wilderness very quickly.
Absolutely, and that's a huge concern, isn't it, for all of that? So, which actually brings me to the very next question. So, there's this entire idea of that the best way to protect the bush is to literally lock it up and have nobody in it. And I guess living in this environment, what's the reality that you see happening in terms of bushfires and things like that, where it's overgrown?
It's accessibility is one of the major means by which they control a fire or a burn. If they can't get into an area and backburn or do some clearing up, then you've got vast tracts. I mean, we've had a fire in the north part of the west part of the town, over the other side of the river there. We had a fire in October, and they couldn't do anything about it really because a lot of that area there is just inaccessible. They really had to just basically beat around the edges of it and hope that it would backtrack, through the weather, and burn itself out, which eventually it did, So, there's and that's really because it's just mountainous. It's really the only saving grace for a lot of the areas out the back here is the fact that there is accessible tracks, and and that goes away. When people go away, then those sort of areas, fast turn back into wilderness, and and it's impossible to get into. It'll be the same reason why they, with the deer control, you're not going to be controlling the deer if you've got vast tracts of wilderness that are inaccessible. It's just it'd be impossible for them to do it.
Absolutely. So, if the government rocked up and said, "Hey, we've got all these ecotourism dollars to kind of reinvest back into your community, into your business," what kind of things can ecotourism dollars that the government would put into a community really be able to do for you?
Not a great deal. I mean, again, it's usually the people that are walking the tracks that keep them clear, and it's the bike riders and they're really the ones that are sort of looking after it. I mean, you could probably clean up some of the walking tracks and that, but ultimately it's a far bigger issue. We had a group from Austria that was willing to put $5 million into building mountain bike tracks from here all the way to Mansfield, and as soon as COVID happened, that dried up, it went away, but they were keen to have people come to the country, but again, it's weather dependent, and you don't get a great deal of ecotourism when it's pouring with rain, or the areas are inaccessible. I mean, a lot of the tracks here are closed off in winter, so to protect them from damage. So ultimately, it's that one period of time, in the season that a lot of the track clearing occurs, usually by the 4-wheel drivers that bring chainsaws and are able to sort of clean trees off the road and and report stuff that's happened, like collapses and things like that. So it wouldn't really make a huge amount of difference. It's we pretty much have a lot of the rec people come out constantly. Like they're out here, you know, even in winter they'll come out. Bike riders love it.
Yeah.
They like coming out in winter, and you know, like you know, there's still areas out there that you know they can access, and they do, and you know, not so much campers. Campers, you know, like camping is really a big thing as well. You know, like brings a lot of dollars into the town, and a lot of the areas have been actively closed off, you know, by parks, and you know, to stop people from camping in them. You know, which is sort of, you know, it's forced everyone into smaller and smaller areas, which you know, and in the town itself is, you know, like a lot of the camping's been knocked on the head here. So.
Yeah, okay. And of course, people who go camping don't really want to be sitting on top of each other camping all together.
Or sitting on top of someone's generator, you know, you know, and there's a lot of places out there like river frontage and things that people go regularly and have done so for a number of years, you know, like whole families go out there, and they've got their spots, and they'll go out there and, you know, spend a couple of weeks, and, you know, quite a lot of them come into town, and they you know, they do the tours, and they do the, you know, like, not a lot of the day trippers come up here to do, you know, ghost tours and things like that, because it's really they're driving home by the time that those sort of things start. So it's really the camping that keeps, you know, things ticking along. So, you know.
And camping's a great family activity. You know, it's something that if you close that up, then what do families do together in a natural environment like the bush? Yeah,
precisely. You know, I mean, it's, our appreciation for the nature, you know, the natural, you know, environment comes from our experiences as kids when we're growing up. You know, like going to those places, you know, going out into the, you know, out to the river, you know, like, you know, cooking up bacon and eggs in the morning, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's a real intrinsic part of our appreciation, and I think there's so many kids now that are, you know, they don't see outside the city. You know, they just you know, it becomes a I guess an unloved part of Australia if it's not, you know, carried on. You know, it's not you know, it's not understood how important, and you know, like. And our place with it, we're not apart from the bush, you know, like we are part of it, you know, like, you know, whether they like it or not, you know, like we are an intrinsic part of the environment, and our impact on the environment has, you know, important, you know, ramifications for the bush, you know, like including like, you know, mitigating fires and, you know, and keeping things open and you know, like, you know, it's really important. Like, you know, we're not apart from it. It's, you know, I mean, and people that harvest from there. You know, like, I mean, we've got, you know, the hunters and fishers, but we've also got, you know, timber, you know, people. You know, like selective. You know, they've been doing selective timber cutting, and you know, like it's all part of that management. You know, like because we've really sort of it's sort of like you know, when you prune a tree. You know, and that tree then needs to be pruned all the time. Well, we've done that to the bush, you know, like we've created this situation where, you know, we need to continue to manage it the way that it's being managed at the moment, you know, because we walk away from it, then that basically becomes a problem that then no one will want to deal with, you know what I mean? Like, because it's going to be too big. You know, you're not going to get fire services in there. No, I mean, CFA at the moment won't go into areas that they think is going to be a problem. They'll let it burn, basically, and you know, that's you know, and then it destroys everything. It just really does, you know, cause problems. I mean, we've got ferns coming into the town now. That was heavily logged for a really long time, and it took a long time for those ferns to recover. You know, because the underground, you know, the undergrowth was gone. There was no undergrowth plants. There was no undergrowth. You know what I mean? Like, so and that facilitated fires. You know, like that's, you know, like, and it facilitates, you know, the same. It's going to be the same thing there. You know, like it's going to facilitate, you know, fires. You know, that are you know, really damaging fires that are going to destroy the undergrowth again. You know, like every time that happens, it destroys the undergrowth. And this is supposed to be a you know, like a subtropical rainforest here, so we're supposed to, you know, have a wet environment, and that sort of thing should be minimised. But you know, because of all of the activity that we've already done, you know, we really are in a position where we have to manage it all the time. You know, like we can't walk away from it. It's one of those things we've taken on our shoulders, and we have to continue with it, or you know, you've got a disaster waiting to happen. You know, like, and we've seen quite a few disasters here. You know, like, you know, in the region. You know, and in, you know, well, in you know the country. You know, to you know, as a whole. You know, we've you know, overlogged and then, you know, created conditions that we now have to manage, and you know, locking it up behind a cage and not allowing access, and not allowing people that can access it. And you know, I mean, a lot of the conditions are reported by four-wheel drivers and you know, by campers. You know what I mean? You know, so a lot of like road collapses and you know, trees, you know, down, and even like dangerous situations with you know, with you know, fire situations and stuff like that, reported by a lot of the people that actually use it. So, you know, if we do have a lightning strike in an area and there's a fire, you know, it might not be picked up for days and days, and by that stage, it become a monster. That, you know, that when we have to rely on other people putting their lives on the line to try and fix. You know, like so. You know, I mean, we've had a couple of flare-ups in, you know, from old bushfires that people have picked up, that the CFA have been able to sort of come and knock on the head very quickly. You know what I mean? Like, and it's usually campers. You know, usually people that are using that area. You know, like
that discover the fire.
Yeah, that discovered they've got, like, you know, a burning stump that's still going. You know, like, you know, 2 days later you've got like really bad conditions, and that could have just taken off, and you know, it would have been you know, a red alert situation again. You know, like it's, you know. So it's, I think it's really important to, you know, like, to not close those areas off. You know, like, you know, I mean, they've already got an exclusion area around the water. You know, the water catchment areas themselves. You know what I mean? Like, it's already in place. You know, like, I think it's just really a big land grab. You know, they're just trying to you know, like, force more and more people away from certain areas, you know. Meanwhile, you know, they've opened up a lot of these areas to gold mining again. You know what I mean? Like, we've got core drilling happening on the other side of this mountain here very soon. You know, like, so, you know, they basically sold mining rights to a lot of the areas underneath us. You know, like, so, you know, what's going on here? You know, like, you know, it's sort of, you know, it sounds to me like there's a reason behind the exclusion, and it has nothing to do with our catchment area or protecting the bush. You know, I think there's something a little bit more deeper than that, and it's really just a, you know. But conspiracies aside, you know.
Well, I was about to say, you know, the government says there's nothing to be, like, a bit of there's nothing to see here. You know, and I guess the question is do you really believe that?
I don't believe the government as far as I can kick them. To be honest. We've run this shop.
John?
What's that?
How far can you kick them, John?
Not very far. There's a lot of anger behind that kick, but there's, you know, we got this shop primarily because I refused to take their poison. You know what I mean? You know, body autonomy is really important for everyone. You know, like, this is our space and our temple, and, you know, the government has no rights to do that, and they have no right to stop us from accessing areas, you know, that we're free to access. You know what I mean? You know, it's really important for us to sort of make a stand and say, look, you know, that, you know, enough is enough. You know, you're here to govern our economy. You're not here to govern and tell us what to do and how to do it, and, you know, and, you know, and there's so many people now that are sick and dying because of what they're doing. You know, like, it's really, like, you know, it's really highlighting, you know, how they operate. You know what I mean? Like, they take little pieces here and there. You know, you don't notice it, and then before you know it, you know, you can't go anywhere. You know, you can't do anything. You need permission to go somewhere, or you need, you know, like, you know. And I think that the last, you know, like the pandemic thing was a real eye opener, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, that's why a lot of people are camping now and buying camper vans and staying in the country for that very reason. You know, because they were told they couldn't go somewhere. You know what I mean? And made to feel afraid of something that, you know, wasn't happening. You know, it never happened. You know what I mean? Like, it was a paper pandemic. It was a pandemic of PCR testing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, you know, like, I mean, you know, they did a PCR test on Coca-Cola and found it had COVID, you know, like it's, you know, like, you know, really, like, I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to that fact, you know, they're really understanding now that the government overreach is really becoming a problem, you know what I mean? And I think it's really because I don't think they work for us.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've worked for us for a long time. I think they've been working for other people and for themselves, you know what I mean? So, you know, and it's basically coming out now. It's coming out in the union bosses. It's coming out in, you know, the various people that are running the organisations, you know, the government, you know, departments and stuff that, you know, that they are really, you know, just, you know, creating a fence and hedging it towards, you know, something that they want, you know, or their masters want, you know what I mean? You know, and it's not beneficial for us. It's not beneficial for you know, sovereign beings. It's you know, and I think a lot of people, you know, the warning signs were certainly when they started, you know, basically saying that, like, I couldn't work because I didn't take, you know, a shot. You know what I mean? Like, and now I have to struggle or have to, you know, like, you know, lose, you know, or have the potential to lose everything that we have, you know, like, because of that, you know. It really, I think it's a lot of people are sort of, you know, now sort of waking up to that idea that, you know, it's this is a different beast, you know. This is not government for the people. This is government for a few of the elites that are sitting on top of the tree there, and what they want for the world, you know, like, you know, and they march on. They, you know, they're marching on. They think that it's, you know, that's, you know, they just keep on doing what they're doing, you know, take a little bit here and take a little bit there, and you know, and I think eventually it'll get to the point where we're just living in, you know, a town or a city, and, you know, we won't be going anywhere.
Absolutely. So if the Minister for the Environment, Steve, was actually watching this video, what would you like to say to him?
Stop assuming that by walking away from nature, or us as humans having nothing to do with nature, is actually improving nature. We're part of that. We're part of that whole thing. We're part of the ecosystem. You have to work around the fact that we are part of the ecosystem, you know, and it's an important part of the ecosystem, you know, because we've already done enough, you know, to make that ecosystem reliant on us to exist, you know what I mean? And B, because if we do not look after it, you know, if we do not keep an eye on it and allow it, you know, to regenerate where it needs to regenerate, and, you know, and to be appreciated, then it will be a forgotten part until something big happens, like, you know, a major disaster, a major fire, or, you know, and then where are they going to be? You know, they're going to be like hiding in the, you know, hiding in their cupboards in Parliament, you know, and refusing to answer questions, you know, like it's, you know. They, you know, like they don't take responsibility when something big happens, you know, like, and, you know, there are people on the ground that, you know how to manage the forests, know how to manage, you know, fire risks and flood risks and all that sort of stuff, and, you know, you need to allow them, you know, the tools to be able to do that, and part of that is, you know, people going in there and camping, people for driving in those areas and accessing those areas, hunters and, you know, fishermen, and you know, and just general ecotourists and people, you know, like mountain bike riding through those areas, you know, like it's really important to have that as a part of the toolkit for these people to, you know, to operate and, you know, and do what they need to do, you know, like.
And it sounds like what you're saying is the balance is probably about right at this stage. We've moved and things have happened, but the balance is probably pretty good right now. And to go to another extreme of shutting everyone out is actually then making us back out of balance.
It's ecology gone mad. You know what I mean? Like it's like, you know, putting all these windmills up, you know, that don't do anything. You've got to attach a power station to them just to, you know, like just to start them up. You know what I mean? Like just to get them going.
A diesel power station to do.
You know, they knocked down Hazelwood, and in its place they replaced it with hundreds of like diesel generators. You know, connected into a tank farm. You know, into a you know, a cable farm, you know, like a transformer, you know, like, you know, and it's really like, you know, it's not a solution, you know, it's kicking the can down the road, you know, so someone else can deal with the problem, you know, like, you know, and you know, how far down the road are we going to kick it? And you know, when we lose whole areas or even our water catchment area, you know, because once we get a fire going there, then Melbourne has no water. You know what I mean? They'll have no water at all. It's a big concern, you know, like that water catchment area is, you know, it needs to be looked after. So, you know, definitely.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was amazing. Loved that. That was great. Thanks, John.
That's all right.